those creators, they prioritize that social media platform. Again, not knocking it by any means, but it's like there's only so many hours in the day, and content creators are content creators. Like that is their bag. So I think we need to give ourselves more patience when it's like that we're not posting all the time. It's like, yeah, we're music makers.
Yo, what's up? This is Toru, and in a way, so are you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a music producer, artist, and entrepreneur. I make music for that space between the dance floor and the bedroom, which has been streamed millions of times and been licensed by brands big and small, including companies like Apple. I believe that regardless of what you produce, whether it be music, art, physical goods, or even spreadsheets, you have a process, whether you know it or not. To explore this further, I created the Producerhead podcast. Producerhead is a place to have conversations with other producers about their experience and process to share what works and what doesn't, to help each of us learn and improve our own processes along the way. Today's guest is Ewing, a self-taught instrumentalist, producer, and artist who blends a smooth mix of hip-hop, electronica, and R&B to create a sound that has been supported and showcased by Chill Hop Music, SiriusXM, BBC One Extra, Soulection, Complexion's Future Beat Show, along with many others. At a young age, the Southern California-based artist, by way of Wisconsin, fell in love with hip-hop and the history behind it. This was his gateway into electronic beat production, where he finds himself today, as he strives to create ambient compositions of sample-based sounds blended with his own instrumentation. Ewing has headlined various shows across the US and has both collaborated and toured with artists including Flamingosis, Futon, Joey Pecoraro, Anomalie, Galimatias, and Cautious Clay. While his music claims to be the official soundtrack of Hummus Everywhere, this is yet to be confirmed. Welcome to part 2 of this 2-part conversation with Ewing, where we discuss the pros and cons of having an over-analytical perspective, making music that is true to who you are creatively and musically, the importance of the work behind the scenes, how creating art that is in line with what is interesting to you leads to a more sustainable path, and we even get a little insight into Ian's passion for hummus. If you haven't already, I invite you to listen to part 1 of this conversation, as we covered several topics from Ian's unique and experienced perspective. All right, with all of that said, let's drop into part 2 of this conversation with Ewing. Because of the success that you've been able to achieve, is that something over the past 10 years or so that were you approaching all of your music with this entrepreneurial mindset, or pursuing? I'm really hesitant to frame it too narrow, because I'm really curious about, as you were coming up and as you were doing this, how were you thinking about music and at the same time music as a career?
Coming from the Midwest, it was almost as if once I realized it was the amount of passion, where I was like, man, I really want to do this. I really want to think about if you could make a living off of this. The general rhetoric that was given to me surrounding music was like that it's a joke. You know what I mean? Which is, again, I really do think that things culturally have progressed quite a bit. In general, though, the Midwest is culturally a couple steps behind the coast. That's just like how things work, always. But which is why I'm confident that by now, I would say kids, Gen Zers, whatever it is, growing up in the Midwest, I'm hopeful that it's a little bit better than this. But it was just so apparent to me that it was nobody respects this unless you're making money in it. And especially let's say generationally, which excluding my parents, God bless them, they really especially living in that area. I mean, I had the best combo of parents. One being a super emotional, super creative, artistic mother, and then a super logical, super analytical father. And then so both of them being absolutely go for it. And my dad being but the best way that you'll do this and the smartest way is if you think of this long-term approach. I'm not saying get a job so that in case things fail. I'm saying have the job because that will help you succeed more. And just the perfect combo of parents. But my friends' parents at school, at church. I grew up in a church, et cetera, and so forth. Just an obvious feeling of like nobody respects this at all because they think that nobody makes money in it. They think that an artist's life is a starving artist's life. That stupid cliche that I don't know who came up with or why, but like starving artist, and like, and it was just so apparent to me that it was not taken seriously unless that was attached to it. But I think thankfully, music has always just been like no brainer. I know my passion for it and that I believe it's one of the most important things in our existence. And like I was saying just prior to this, that it's like truth to me. It's like it's probably very similar. The way I use music and many other people is very similar to the way people use like religion as a tool. And that's not me saying like I go and worship music every day. It's just like, I think that's a very similar way in that you use this thing as a tool to be a foundation in your life, that you use it to contextualize things, you use it to look for truth, all that sort of thing. So I don't know when necessarily or whatever. I just know that that's always been there. Like that was just like, yeah, of course. Like music is the thing. It's the most special, amazing thing. So I already knew there never was like, I was never worried about there being me being corrupted by economic factors. It was literally just like, I'm doing this, and if money is the only way you people will accept it and legitimize it, then I'm going to go get money. Like, so I was, and I've definitely, speaking about that point in time which is like, all right, you get, early adulthood, you just went to school for nutritional sciences and now, but like you're going to like be a musician. So you got to figure that out. But I maybe even a little too much so, but I was determined. I was like, I'll get the money. I have no problem. I'm not worried that is going to corrupt my relationship with making music at all. I just wanted to do it so that I could make a living, and also so that my wife's grandpa at the time didn't think that I was going to bankrupt her granddaughter. It was just like, yeah, like, okay, I'll go do that so that all you boomers think that I have a legitimate career, which of course is not sustainable. And I know that, but like, I was like 20 at the time. So, young and really like, just like super much more, I don't want to just say emotional, because of course you're always emotional, but yeah, much more hard on my sleeve in that way, where that's kind of how I made sense of things, was that the music was the constant that was there. And it was like, well, the missing part is money. So that has to become a part of this. And with that said, fortunately, like, I really don't feel like I had to pursue opportunities that didn't align with what I actually wanted to do. I feel like, yes, definitely there was a nice, healthy stretch of not having enough money, of not making enough money, of grinding and putting in like what I consider putting in the ground foundation of the house, like grunt work. And it is hard, and you're not seeing much of the signs of progress at all. But dude, I was young. I was able to live broke, and I was gonna make it happen. Dude, I threw away my bed because I was like, why do I need a bed when I could just get this little mat in the corner and I could have room for a drum set in my tiny room? That I was like, it was just like, at one point, literally music was like, it was like, you're making this happen even if you die, So I feel like it was something that I understood. The outside world was like, oh yeah, it's not respected unless you have money. So I let that kind of external variable matter a lot to me. And I think I worked to the point of being able to establish, enough to make a living. And then you pull your head up out of the clouds and you're like, oh wait, but it's not healthy to live in this way sustainably.
Sure.
Now it's like, okay, we have the foundation up and running. Now it's like, it should not be making decisions on like what does everybody else think about a musician's career and how they should make money and what they should do and what is success to them. It's literally like, okay, opposite of all those things, you know, certainly how do we maintain this and how do we keep things sustainable, but all in the name of like what is aligned with who I am and what I think I like, what is the best contribution to the world, musically or otherwise. Like, let's keep things in alignment with that. But yeah, I just feel like music was always the thing. It was just like the world was making it clear to me, like, well, no, like nobody's going to take you seriously unless you're making money. So it's just like, okay, like I'll do whatever I have to do.
Yeah,
So
wow.
yeah.
Dude, I mean, that's such a wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I think what comes out to me, right, is this recognition of like, okay, you had this energy source, which was like the expectations or of society or people in your family about what validates a career and what doesn't. And it was super valuable in that it sort of really propelled you in a really intense way towards something that you really wanted. And then at some point there's a recognition of like, okay, thank you, but that's not that's not the energy source that's going to carry me the distance, right? And so I'm curious about can you remember like at what point or if something happened that allowed you to kind of make that distinction and be like, oh, you know what, like this needs to shift if I'm going to keep doing this. I need to get my energy and my motivation in a different way.
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe just like few years into actually having some sort of footing, because and I would definitely, like I said, I think fortunately I can't recall any times that I was straight up like bag chasing, for sure. Not like, I think I just got super fortunate that I was able to get some financial traction in things that I were my number one things. You know, they were my main artist project. They were exactly what I wanted it to be. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like selling a bunch of non-exclusive beats to random rappers and just trying to like make it that way, or like doing like wedding DJing. God bless it to anybody who does wedding DJing. I'm just saying, you know, like other things that were not my passion, which was making my own project and my own music in that way. So to be clear, I feel like I got very just fortunate in that, being able to connect those dots in the things that I'm like, man, this is the number one way I would want to make my living. Relatively speaking, I think that like probably, you know, with the luxury of success or being able to be sustainable, then you have the luxury of constantly self-assessing. And I'm luckily really good at that. I'm probably like, it's a little too much, like a little too over-analytical. I overthink a lot, but at least you get some benefit out of it before you're doing it too much. But yeah, so I think with the luxury of being like, wow, cool, we're like on our own 2 feet, we are making a living in this, just wanting to self-assess and be like, am I doing everything I can though? What are we doing here? Okay, making some money on streaming royalties on Spotify mainly, but what does that look like? It looks like to me like a lot of producers and songs being rewarded for these few playlists, that it starts to be these playlists dictate the music of this genre, and I don't like that. So what is more in alignment? It's making something that is out of the box, that maybe doesn't fit in these playlists. That's kind of a conflict, because streaming royalties are the main revenue for us, you know, for the type of producers we are. And so that's a direct conflict, is like, I want to make something that doesn't fit in these, excuse my term, but cookie cutter playlists. You know what I mean? Just looking at it like critically, looking at where I'm at, what things were working, but like, are all of those things actually in alignment with what you want to do, or you know, how ambitious you want to be musically or creatively. So I think being lucky enough to do it for a little while with my head above water, and then you just self-assess and you go, okay, like life is ideally just a nonstop work in progress, so you're just constantly looking at like, okay, what can I improve? What fat can I trim from here? But yeah, it was probably just a few years in of looking at what was working, what wasn't working, and more importantly, like, is there anything that I was doing that I was feeling like, when it's clashing with your soul of like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not feeling this. And so, yes, I'm both thankful for my ability to self-assess, but sometimes it's a little much, and I gotta keep it in check.
Right on. I'm sure many people listening can relate to that. So
For sure.
I love what you just brought up about, okay, so I have success in this one space of because of streaming and being able to produce a certain kind of music and being known for that. And recently you just dropped this little live record, which is super cool. And so to your point, right, that couldn't be more outside of that particular box. And so on one hand, you could say you've done something to completely, from a financial perspective, potentially make life harder for you. So I'm curious just to speak on that and why you decided to do something like that.
I think that that live sessions vid that just dropped is a perfect example of like how the decisions you make in how you're navigating the music economy or the music world. But yeah, that's a perfect case in point of myself and also my the lo-fi world or whatever. My group of producer peers, like beat videos have gotten pretty mainstay, pretty like standard, which I love. Just the general notion of producers being like, hey, I could like go a step further and try to visually, whether it's from my bedroom or from a different place, visually kind of just more express what went into making this kind of music. So I think just in general, it's so cool how more common they've become. But then, even just in comparison to myself of videos that I've made or pieces of content that I am pairing with songs, it was just literally coming out of a point of like, man, it's just all been these same type of beat videos, which are really, we mentioned the word before, but they can feel sterile. They can feel like sometimes you're not even like, you could be fooled if it's performed audio or if it's just the original track that's playing back and they're just kind of essentially miming for the piece of content, which isn't even bad. Like for the main, I think for the bell curve of music listeners, they don't know or care. Like they want to see the importance is just like visually adding a visual element that could make the engagement to it even stronger. But for myself, it really was just like, I'm not finding myself excited to make any of these videos. So there's something up there. That's a red flag right there. Like I was just saying, like, it in your core, if you're doing something that isn't in alignment or it's feeling just kind of off. And that was definitely one of them, which is like not excited about making a beat video. But like it, and not only for me, but like respectfully just looking out into the beat making landscape, like what is something that I would consider is a lot less common. It's like full on live instrumentation or something where the video and the audio is like kind of embracing mistakes or like imperfections a lot more. And back to the self-assessing thing, just kind of like assessing where I'm at, which is like kind of always felt foot in one side, which is very technical. It's my producer hat, it's dealing with electronic elements, but then there's another foot in like the musician world and being able to play instruments and really enjoying, like performing with other people. And honestly, it came down to that, like both first and foremost for myself, what do I think is missing as far as what I've made or what would be fun for me actually? Like what is an idea of a video to make that would be like, get me excited. And then also in the greater music ecosystem or world, like what is something that maybe is not super common that you don't see all the time, and that just checked all of those boxes. It was like, lucky enough to know other friends that are also producers and also play instruments, so they really easy to collaborate with. Shout out to Brandon and Sean, and literally just treating it like, guys, let's link up at my buddy's house over here. I'm going to send you these songs. We don't even have, like, I want to reinterpret them, but we literally can just like be so loose with it. The point is to hang out together. The point is to capture on video us figuring it out and communicating in real time together. I knew the music was going to sound cool and tight. It was more important, like, man, it'd be fun to like capture that chill sound, but in something where it's like, oh, cool. Like they were all doing this in the room together, and like, and yeah, and like mistakes that happen and weird buzzes, like the imperfections really got me excited about it, on top of literally just like, oh, instead of me sitting in my room alone, setting up shots and doing this video by myself, like I get to do it with 4, 5, 6 buddies. Like that's way better. So, yeah, I mean, that just checked all the boxes for me as far as like, things that I think I haven't done yet and that I want to do more of in the future, which is like, embrace a lot of imperfections and, yeah, just thinking of it like, who listens to my music and what would be cool for them to see that's like, oh, that's kind of like unique. So trying to have that be any sort of compass, it has been helpful to me, and that was definitely what was leading me to that live sessions video. Also, shout out to, I would say part of it too is the luxury of having people who are willing and able to help you. And I've been working a little bit with this label called Network, and they were of huge help with that, just like connecting dots and enthusiastic about it. And yeah, every step of the way, just helping me like connect all these little dots that need to be connected when you're trying to put something together like that. So that was of huge help too, having like, there were at least 8 other collaborators that just so thankful for their help in it. But that too, just having that's part of it, like a lot of people who want to make a video or a beat video, it's like, well, I would love to do a whole bigger thing with other musicians and several videographers, but I don't have that at my disposal. So I'm going to do a bedroom video, and that's great. So having that at my disposal is part of the incentive too. It's like, cool, like you guys are down to make something bigger or more ambitious, then let's do it. So that was a big piece of the puzzle too, for sure.
Very cool, man. Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, I think it's so cool that you did it. I do find it to be really inspiring, and given the stuff that even I've been working on personally, it's made me think about flipping it in a way that I hadn't thought of before. So like, I really do think it's cool. And it fits with this idea that I personally really like, which is like making movies instead of trailers, right? And I think making short form content is sort of the ultimate like trailer kind of hamster wheel. And so, and I'm not mad at it, right? Like it's part of the world that we live in. However, I do think that if you're, and this is just my personal opinion, as a producer, I think, or as a musician, if you dedicate too much time to that, you don't give yourself as much time to get deep into the underlying craft of music and production and all the things that I enjoy doing more. So that's what I really love about this idea of that you made these songs, you recorded a live session, and now you just have this long thing, and you can now decide to do whatever with this big thing whatever you decide. And I think there's so much optionality in that, and it does take a little bit more work and time and planning. However, on the back end, it's just like now there are all these things that you can do with it. And I think, and throughout that process, you've also spent time writing, producing, practicing, and all of these things. And so I just think that there's so much value in that, even though it's sort of counter to like, hey, I don't have something to show these people every day.
Yeah, and it takes that little bit of discipline, right? To be like, it's not bad that I don't have a new video every week because I'm working on something different that it doesn't work in that way. But yeah, I think it sounds like what you're getting at too is just like the best type of content for for our type of creator is any content that it's almost like content that's able to be made not specifically for just that video.
Yeah.
It's like if you can create content that naturally comes out of like your workflow in any way, that's so ideal. Which is why, like, I mean, so many like bedroom videos work well is because like get your camera set up and then like you can be actively working and just flip them on, and it's like you're not dedicating time pulling you away from making music for like, okay, let me make this video piece of content. It's like it's kind of all working together. Whereas the live session, obviously, it was very different. We're going to a different location. We're setting up for that specific thing. But like you said, it's all things that I definitely want more experience and knowledge in, which is setting up something like that, actually playing the music with other people, more experience and time performing with other people, the actual time that we were together, the amount of stuff we recorded that wasn't on the live session, just keeping the mics running and us just recording like that, as long as the content is providing some, benefit that is part of your whole goal thing, then it's great. And you definitely just don't want to be at the place of like making content and you feel like you're getting none of those benefits, and it feels like you said, the never ending trailer hamster wheel. And it's like, man, I just feel like I'm pulling all this time away just to cut these short little things. So yeah, I think if there's any way you can connect the dots of like, if the content can, even just one little benefit can come also from cutting whatever it is, videos or whatever, then that's where it's really at. Because you want it to serve you also beyond just the posting the content, like you want to have it serve you in some way beyond that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, I feel like kind of what we're getting at is like, find a way to align what it is that you want to actually accomplish with the content that you're making, so that content doesn't become a completely separate job, because no matter what, like there's going to be some labor involved if you're the person responsible for doing it. But if you can have it be in line with things that you're already doing, it's definitely I think for one, it's more efficient. The other piece is it's more sustainable because it's less draining, because you're not creating this other thing just to satisfy it.
Exactly. So, and you're like rage posting it, or like you're like you're all like resentful about it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the name of the game, or the trade-off there, is what we just mentioned, which is that does take a little more discipline, because it leaves you in a position of feeling like, oh, am I doing this right? I'm not doing the thing where I am posting frequently and I have a new video to present every week or whatever. It takes a little bit of discipline being like, look, I know that this is the route that will be most sustainable, but that means that the trade-off is like, yeah, I'm not posting every week. And that's, so long as my benefit of having content that serves me and is sustainable, as long as that benefit is greater, then it's like, okay, that's the trade-off. You need to understand that you're not, that's not how you're operating, and that's not the kind of creator you are. You're not, that's the other part, is like, I say this all the time to my buddy Christian, because we have conversations about this all the time, but it's like, it's important to distinguish yourself away from just social media creating. Like, a lot of people you see going like viral on, like, if they're a beat maker on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, or they're doing something on YouTube, it's like, do you know how much time they dedicate to that? It's like, sometimes I think we fall into the trap of being like, man, they're making all these beats and they're getting these placements and they're posting all this content and have all this traction on their social media. It's like, no, man, like the way that you prioritize fill in the blank as far as finishing your music, those creators, they prioritize that social media platform. Again, not knocking it by any means, but it's like, there's only so many hours in the day, and content creators are content creators. Like, that is their bag. So I think we need to give ourselves more patience when it's like that we're not posting all the time. It's like, yeah, we're music makers, you know, like we are. That's what I always say to my label that I'm working with is like, when I'm feeling not into making like a video piece of content or whatever, I'm like, I made the content already. The content is the music. Like, you know, like it's so easy to get frustrated. Like, wait, we're supposed to make more content. Like I just spent 100 hours making the content and now you're telling me I need to make another piece of content. It's kind of funny, but I think it's important to remember that too. Like to be realistic about like we should not be expected to be, if you're a music maker, you should not be expected to post a video all the time on Instagram. You shouldn't. That's not the kind of creator you are. And you should feel confident and happy in that and allow yourself to work how you work, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I couldn't agree more, man. Yeah. Decide what you want to do with your work, you know, instead of serving this platform, you know, that really, I'll leave each and every other person to decide what it is to them. So with that, how about we listen to track 2? I gotta say, this is the first time it's gone this way, but I mean, it's everything we've been saying, you know, allow it to flow the way that it flows.
Absolutely, I love it.
So track 2 is Move Me No Mountain by Shaka Khan and Lou Han.
Oh.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
To prove that you do.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah, that's a banger.
yeah? Such a banger.
Wow.
Shaka Khan's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, obviously legendary voice. I don't know who Luhan is. That's the first time I've ever heard that name, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar either.
So, wow. But man, the stereos, like this, the spacing and the arrange of the is just, it's like, it's beautiful, right? It's like so clear and clean the whole time. And then it's just such an, like, I love that breakdown when those horns come in. But in general, like throughout the song, what's so cool is like, you just have the very standard like core foundation of that track, and then it's just such a good job just like, all right, we're going to bring in this different lead element for a little while, and then you're never going to hear that again, and then here's another lead element. Yeah, wow, and so it just makes, there's always something cool, fresh, but then you just have these like incredible rhythmic foundation that's just like so solid, that just doesn't get old. It helps to have Shaka Khan singing. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
dude, and that bass line is just like
yeah.
so mean. It's so good. Like I remember the first time I heard that, I was like disgusted.
Yeah, I
Like
know,
the
man.
writing
Wow.
of that type of bass line. Oh, so good.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I will be going back to that one, man. Very, very nice. All right. Track 3, Night Station by Danny Desh. Also a new one for me. 3, 2, 1. Wow, those drums, man. I've never heard of this guy, Danny Desh. Where'd you find him?
yeah, me neither. Yeah, no, like I said, just stumbled upon this beat. I don't even know when, but recently, and it's just
Wow.
this is like a great example of the where you're mentioning earlier of uh not more decisions but better ones.
Yeah.
It's just like this is just like one of those like perfect beats where
Yeah.
it's like not only is it not doing too much, it's it's a beat, it's a repeated nice beat, minute and a half, love it, but also like it's so it's so musical,
Mm-hmm.
great chord progressions, great melody, great pacing of everything,
Mm-hmm.
but also like in the yeah, like you could do so much more with this if you wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
but I love that old Danny Desh didn't it? It's just like that it's just perfect, that it's just like
Yeah.
intro drums perfect, also sonically too. I think it's like not not doing too much with any one element, not like distorting the hell out of the drums just because, not over mixing any one element, just like paced and yeah, just rides so nice, like one of those perma loops, could just like listen to it forever.
Yeah, truly, man. Because really, like that kind of snare, like when that starts and you just hear the drum loop, like that snare is like so far beyond what I would normally choose, but it sounds amazing. And then when everything else comes in, it's just like, it all is just like the decisions of everything, it really just all fits together so well that you're just like, wow, like that's, the guy has an ear. Like it's really nice. Very, very cool.
Exactly. What happens when it's like, when you hear a sound, you're like, see, I want to chose that myself, but then you hear the whole song and you're like, and that's why, because like they heard something different and it works so perfectly.
Oh my God, I know, man.
That's funny.
So cool. If you want to share any upcoming projects,
definitely go check out live sessions vid of mine on YouTube. Just put that out a couple weeks ago with Brandon, aka Bureaucratic, and Sean, aka Skyos. Just a little long form video that we shot at my friend's house, and really proud of that one. It was really fun. Go check that out. And otherwise, have put out a good handful of tunes this year, but have a lot planned for the rest of the year. A lot of different music that I'm very excited to share. So just, stay tuned for that.
In addition to the upcoming projects, I just want to ask if there's a place you like to send people for those that are listening, in case they'd like to see more from you in general and follow along with what you're doing.
Probably most active on Instagram as far as social media. I'm at Ian Ewing Music, and always keep the old website updated with all music and sample packs and live events or anything that I'm up to. So that is also ianewingmusic.com. Those are probably best two ways to keep up with me.
Cool. Yeah, we'll link all of that in the show so everybody can find you. But yeah, go follow this man. And definitely, the live thing is super cool on YouTube, as well as I was listening to on Spotify. Very cool.
And DSPs as well. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. So with that, man, let's jump into these quick hits here on the way out. Which DAW do you use?
FL Studio, baby.
Wow. It's nice to see some representation for FL, honestly. I think you might be the first one so far. Go-to sound or instrument?
Really? I hope first of many.
Yeah. Me too, man. We'd like to see diversity here. The drums, of course. I shouldn't have let you say that. Go-to plugin?
Probably Wolf compressor at this point in time. Either that or RC20. I'm sorry, but it's just so hard not to use that one. But yeah, Wolf compressor, I use a ton. Radiator, I use that. I use those in tandem a lot. Radiator going into Wolf compressor. Oof, love it.
Yeah,
love
there you go. Is that specifically a drum thing for you?
Definitely, probably most used on the drums. Yeah,
cool.
But I mean, God, I use all three of those that I mentioned. I use them so indiscriminately on any type of sound for different reasons, of course. But yeah, I mean, probably the funnest, most obvious use would be on drums for sure. Just squashing them real hard.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite piece of gear aside from your drum set?
Probably right now, I got the Prophet Rev 2. And have just been trying to dive into that more. I'm usually so bad at like, I get a synth that's like, I just scratch the surface and I don't go any deeper at all into like actually using it. So I've been sitting down with that more and trying to explore it. And that's been a lot of fun because I'm definitely newer to like just hardware since in general. So it's been a lot of fun to have a station that is not in the computer. You know what I mean?
Dude, 100%. I mean, that's what's sitting right here, man. I'm a big fan. And I've had it.
Sure. I should have noticed.
And yeah, man, I mean, I've had it for longer, and man, yes, still really, I go through phases, like when I first, and how much I do and don't use it, but recently I've started using it a lot again, and so it's been cool. It's nice to like have it around for that kind of thing, because I don't know, I just find like I experience seasons with pieces of gear, you know, but I've learned not to get rid of it because I like it always comes back around, and I get into it.
Yeah, I agree. They're smart to just hang on to.
Yeah. 3 producers you think everybody could listen to. Don't use Dilla or Madlib.
I love those rules. It's like, you made it when you're like, you can't say the people that everyone agrees are the tops. Yeah. No, I'd probably say Galimatias has like always been one of my favorite producers. So unique. Teebs, absolutely I go
Love
through
him.
I go through chapters with
I love
or
him.
seasons with like all sorts of different artists, like everyone does. But Teebs is I go through seasons, but even on the off seasons, I'm like obsessed with it. So I'm currently back in another deep Teebs rabbit hole and just in love with everything about his music. So Teebs definitely. Ooh, question. I'd say medicine too.
Wow.
Very similar producer to Galimatias, but yeah, he's I would just say for myself as far as producers that have been like long standing inspirations and medicine's a good example of like he's kind of like had different chapters to his career. You know, he used to be so trap at one point, and then he
Hmm.
purposely shifted from that, and then now he just put out an album that was literally like soundscapes. So I mean, super inspiring to. I think that very much goes hand in hand with what we're talking about as far as like making your own decisions and navigating despite economic
Hmm.
variables. Like such a cool move to be like, listen, I know how I grew my fan base, but also I really want to make a soundscapes record because that's how that's what I'm most excited about. So yeah, he's super inspiring in that way. Like I feel like he's always is very true to himself for sure.
Yeah, man, all three very cool, interesting choices. Also, I've been a big Teebs fan for a long time. He's great. Three favorite albums.
Vecatimist by Grizzly Bear, so good. That's been in my top five probably since I first heard it when I
Huh.
was in like college or whatever. There's an album called "Sing a Sapling into Kona Triangles." Like
Kona Triangles.
some
Oh.
third one, I'll say Jimi Hendrix live at Berkeley, 1969. It was the
Ah, cool.
first CD I ever got, and it's still so good.
Someone else you think I should talk to on this podcast?
Galimatias would be really cool. He's a
Yeah.
great dude, and yeah, that'd be awesome to hear. Him or Strelo, my buddy Christian. I would love to hear from him.
Favorite movie?
Truman Show.
Interesting. Haven't seen that in a minute. It's a classic though. Love Jim
So
Carrey,
good,
man.
dude. I love it.
What character from a book, movie, show, etc. do you most identify with?
That was real hard, and I kind of just want to say Truman from the Truman Show because there has been moments in my life where I have felt that I am being surveilled
Yeah.
by the whole world.
Yeah.
And actually, there is since that movie came out, there actually is there became a I think it's actually called the Truman Syndrome that they had so many psychological events or people coming in for psychological help, specifically referring to the Truman Show. So basically, I think it's like related to paranoia,
Yeah.
but people that were coming in being like they were convinced that that their life was Truman Show, that everybody was watching them and that sort of thing. There was a period of my life when I was much younger where I was like, is this who I am? But I'll say that just because I definitely couldn't think of another character off the top of my head that I super identify with. But there are parts of Truman that I certainly identify with, even though I do know that I am not being watched and I'm not inside of a big fake dome.
Man, you might have inspired me to go back and rewatch that. It's been so long since I've seen that movie. Yeah. If you were to do one thing that would break the internet, what would it be?
That's another really hard one, but I mean, dude, I have no idea, but hopefully it would be something like beyond music, like dismantling some terribly oppressive system that's in place at the time. I really don't know anything else, anything that I would be breaking the internet for. Yeah,
We'll
I
take
don't
it.
know, man.
We'll take it. The last question that I'm going to ask is, I didn't know until this conversation that you study nutritional science. So now I'm curious about that connection given your allegiance to hummus.
Oh yeah, I mean they actually are related because I think I fell in love with hummus early on because yeah, I mean, I definitely had always had a diet leaning towards just naturally like pretty minimally processed and all that. And
Mm,
like growing up, I think I was probably because my older brother became vegetarian, so my mom was just really good at that, and she just like taught herself a bunch of recipes that were like super whole food based. So
mm,
I feel like I luckily kind of just fell into like an ideal diet growing up and being exposed to different foods and like a really balanced whole type of diet. But I think that is, I mean, I've always just loved it. Well, that's part of it. I started eating hummus probably pretty early for just a white kid, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like a white kid from Wisconsin, like pretty early to be eating hummus. And then I think I did like fall in love with it because it's like it's it's an alternative, it's a dip, right? So it's an
Yeah.
alternative to like think of other dips. There's like the chip dip that is literally like sour cream. You know what I mean? It's just like it's just pure like lipids,
Yeah.
which listen, lipids have gotten vilified too. I'm a true nutritionist and fats are not bad by any means, but I just always loved it because I'm like, this is literally like a lean, high protein dip and it tastes amazing. So I think I've always just been there's a general cultural difference between Western food. There's not really Western food culture. It's that like Western food is like it's a highly industrialized food system. So it's a lot of processed foods and it's a lot of fried foods and fast food chains. So like American food, that's kind of like where we get our flavor and where we get our like palate excitement. But you eat any other cuisine and you're like, holy shit, this tastes amazing. And it's not deep fried. What, like, I think we're not used to that, but it's because, like, for instance, let's say where hummus comes from, Middle Eastern, they're getting their flavors and excitement from spices. You know
Mm,
what I mean? So hummus is amazing because it's like, yeah, it takes a bit of work to make, but also it's like you're having all these like incredible spices and flavors. Whereas, like, generally speaking, if when you're not eating other culture cuisines, then you're just then if you're getting excitement, it's probably from what I would consider cheap excitement for food, deep frying
interesting.
foods, maybe just like just eating foods that are naturally like higher in fat content because fat provides a lot more flavor. But so I think that's funny that you asked that because I used to be like, oh, whatever, it's random. But no, I think it's like anybody who like appreciates like a healthful diet, yeah, you gotta love hummus because it's like it tastes amazing and it literally is like it's like a superfood. It's amazing, dude.
Yeah, right on. Interesting. Do you make your own hummus?
Oh hell yeah, yeah,
Oh,
dude. I'm at a
wow.
point where I can't go back. Like I literally just a couple weeks ago, because you go through this whole thing where it's like you slowly are weaning off of like processed hummus, right? And like if you ever go to like an Israeli restaurant or like or Palestinian or any Middle Eastern roots restaurant, you have that hummus. You're like, oh, right, okay,
Mm,
so the grocery store stuff is actual bullshit. So I
yeah.
didn't want it to happen, but I
Yeah.
fully like I started making a long time ago because like it's super simple. The hardest part is owning a food processor. That's like
Yeah.
the biggest obstacle in the whole thing. I didn't want to like be a snob by any means, but literally a few weeks ago, I had to say to my wife, I'm like, I'm done putting up. You go to parties, when they buy Sabra,
Yeah.
but dude, I fucking hate Sabra. It's so bad. It's so terrible, dude. It's so bad. And so I finally decided, I'm like, dude, I'm not being polite anymore. Like, I'm going to be that douche at parties that is like, no, thank you. I'm not having that. Like, I'm not eating that stuff anymore. It's either like scratch made or homemade for myself, and that's it. I can't pretend anymore. So,
That's amazing, man.
dude, I'm a purist. I'm a
I
purist.
love it. I'm gonna have to hit you up for the hummus recipe, man. I'm so glad that I asked about that. All right,
I
man.
got you. It's so simple too.
Right on. Yeah. Man, I mean, that's all that I got. And man, I really can't thank you enough. I mean, this conversation it really just flowed and we just kind of went to a bunch of places, very freestyled. And yeah, man, thanks for sharing it. I mean, I think there were just so many gems in here around just taking care of yourself as a whole. and like how your music and your art and your output really is a reflection of how you're doing as a person. And I think that is just such a strong and powerful message. And, you know, the discipline, man, and the success, I mean, you know, well deserved. And thank you for sharing the time with us, man.
I do. Appreciate it so much. Yeah, really love your podcast. I think it's super dope to have something out there that's like, that aims to do exactly that. Talk a little bit more than a little bit beyond like, how did you get started in music? Just all the abstract stuff and all the fun, interesting, exciting stuff. So yeah, props to you. Love the podcast, and yeah, really appreciated talking with you, bud.
That's what's up, man. Yeah. Everybody that's been in Ewing, this has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. We will catch you next time on Producerhead. Peace. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Producerhead. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to drop a review and send this to a friend. It really helps Producerhead find its place and its people. Don't forget to head over to torubeat.substack.com and subscribe. This is where you'll be able to find an organized consolidation of each episode of Producerhead along with transcripts. You will also receive the bi-weekly podium, a top 3 curation of my favorite things found on and offline over the past week. It's a 2-minute read that provides you with a personal soundtrack, ideas, and practical inspiration that you can use immediately. So tap in and receive the bi-weekly podium, a top 3 personally curated by me for free. torubeat.substack.com and subscribe so that you don't miss any updates from me and or Producerhead. That's it for this episode of Producerhead. I appreciate you coming through and being a part of it. My hope is that it helps you unlock a bit more creativity and find progress in a way that matters to you. The theme music is one of my own songs. It is called Room to Breathe and available now on all streaming platforms. Again, for real, thank you so much for being here with me, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode of Producerhead. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. Peace.